Fly chick coming through. Nice to meet you. Glad you came too. Like you said, when you know you got moves. You spit game and you know you spit.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Fastlane Collective. I am so excited for this episode because we have the one, the only, amazing James Cocker. James, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. It's actually Coker, but that's all right. We'll leave it. We'll leave.
Do you know what's
in.
hilarious is I always check with our guests, like, to check their last name, and I didn't. So
It's okay. You're just
let
bringing
me
back
start over.
No. Let's leave this in. You're bringing back a lot of childhood trauma.
I'm so sorry.
That's what these moments are for.
James Coker. Let's just clarify that here. Well, anyways, now that I've fully embarrassed myself, thanks for coming on and thanks for being here. We're very excited to have you. Yeah. You, of course, are comedian, actor, motorsports content creator, podcast host. You kind of do it all. So before we jump into your F1 life and motorsports life, tell us a little bit about James. Where are you from? If you want to be as brave as to let us know your age too, go for it.
Oh, I've told people my age. I'm pretty old, and especially compared to other creators in the space. I'm 41, so I'm up there. I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I went to high school in New Jersey. I went to college in Florida. I immediately moved to New York City. My first job out of college was I was a production assistant on the TV show 30 Rock.
Amazing.
And I did that for 3 seasons. And for a long time, I thought I wanted to work in production and TV and movies. And I was on a career track to eventually become like an assistant director and maybe like a line producer on TV shows and film. And then during that time, I started taking improv and sketch comedy classes in New York City at Upright Citizens Brigade and a few other theaters, such as the People's Improv Theater and the Magnet Theater, which are smaller improv theaters in New York City. And I fell in love with improv and sketch comedy, and I started performing and writing more. And for, it's interesting because the motorsport stuff is really what took off, but I've been making videos online since 2008. It's just, and I've had a few things like go viral, but I've never been able to cultivate a following. And it wasn't until I started doing motorsport stuff that things really took off. But I lived in New York for over a decade. Then my wife and I moved to California in 2019. During all that time, I also have been an actor. I've, had small parts on probably a dozen TV shows. I was just in a movie called Freaky Tales, which was in theaters with Pedro Pascal, and now is on HBO Max that you can watch.
Amazing.
This year, I was also in 2 episodes of 911, an episode of Matlock, and I worked in production for over a decade. And I was able to leave my job in production because in 2018, I was cast as a spokesperson for a cable company called Spectrum. And so I was a spokesperson for Spectrum and Spectrum Mobile wireless service. And I shot like 20 commercials a year for 3 years. And I made like a ton of money for doing like 8 days of work a year. And it was the best. And I was able to quit my day job and sort of focus on acting. And I started taking more like acting classes and leaning into like working on auditions, working on scenes, but also like focusing on making like comedy content online. And I was doing that. And then in 2023, my wife and I watched Drive to Survive, having never watched any motorsport in my entire life. And we immediately got hooked into Drive to Survive, started watching F1. And we made this one video, which you referenced before we started the interview, where my wife and I would be in the car and we would do like team talk, and she'd pretend to be the engineer and I'd be the driver. And, she'd just say like box, box, push, push, like, how are your tires? Things like that. And I was like, oh, this is funny. Let's record it. And I'm, edited it and put it on my Instagram, not thinking much of it. And it went super viral and had like 8 million views on TikTok, 8 million views on Instagram. ESPN shared it, motorsport.com shared it, Sports Illustrated shared it. And I told myself, okay, I'll keep making F1 related stuff until it stops getting engagement, and it never did. And all of a sudden, by accident, this was not intentional. I became a motorsport content creator. And I think the main reason why it took off and people enjoyed it so much is there were not a lot of people making comedy content in the space. I think the only real exception is Connor Moore, who is an Irish impressionist who is unbelievably talented.
Yeah.
And he does less F1 stuff now. He mainly does golf, but he was the only other person I feel like making comedy content in the space. And I think that's why I was able to build a following fairly quickly.
Yeah, I remember watching those first, like we said before, we talked about it before we hit record, those early videos. I found those so hilarious because also being someone who's married as well, I was like, you always have that back and forth driving banter, but it's not usually like in the F1 context, which I just loved so much. And then your responses of like box, and you were like, why? I'm fine.
Yeah.
So those were so great. I mean, I also fell in love with your like F1 Duolingo skit, which was so great.
Oh, I love that you love that because that video did not perform well, and so people didn't like it. But I'm glad someone out there did.
Yeah, I loved it, and then I would have to say that the top of the list though is the Les Mis F1. That was great. I die laughing because my mom and I are huge Les Mis fans, and I sent that to her, and she was like, "This is genius." I was like,
I love Les Mis. I think it's my favorite musical, and like I love musicals, but I'm also like my taste in musicals are very basic. Like I love Les Mis, I love Phantom, like the big ones. I'm not. If you ask me like, oh, what's your favorite musical? I'm not gonna say like Carousel or like the Cape Man, which was like the Paul Simon musical that only lasted like 3 days on Broadway. I'm gonna give you like a pretty basic popular answer.
Right. Yeah. No, we love it. And I think it played so well, and I think that's why it works so well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still waiting for a High School Musical version if you haven't done that yet. Maybe you have and I missed it.
High School Musical is a cultural blind spot for me because I believe when High School Musical came out, I was slightly too old to like watch and enjoy that.
Got it. Okay.
So that might be more Caroline Corner speed.
Yeah.
Than me.
Yeah, my millennial's coming out. Obviously, it's showing.
I'm a millennial, but I'm like the oldest millennial that could be. Like I'm like right at the cutoff date.
Hey, you're still one of us. That's all that matters. So we don't discriminate here in the millennial world, okay?
Thank you.
No. I also am like mid-30s too, and especially working in the marketing field, you learn all these fun new things. You're like, oh wow, I'm old. I had no idea what you were talking about there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel you on that. Daniella actually has a really you and her have very similar backgrounds. I'll let
really?
Daniella, yeah.
Yeah, so I started off also as an actor. I went to uni, did an acting degree, and then halfway through my degree was like, I think I want to go into motorsport and presenting. And I was like, I don't know how TV works. So I went into working for a production company, and that's how I started on Formula E. Formula E was my first gig. And then I did a bit of like TikTok content creation, mostly about W Series, because that was my favorite championship. And my dream was to work on W Series as like a pit lane reporter. And so just constantly made content about that, and then ended up working for Whisper, who were the host broadcasters for W Series. And yeah, so I did start off also as an actor. So I have a lot of like
That's so cool.
acting based questions and a lot of Formula E questions for you, because I feel like that's the two things that I'm interested in that you are also a part of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of like wanted to know if there's anything that you feel crosses over between your work like as an actor and creative outside of motorsport that kind of lends into your motorsport content creation.
I think a lot of people message me and talk to me. They're like, oh, I don't know how you came up with this idea, or I don't know how you, ended up making X, Y, and Z. And a lot of it is just that, first of all, I'm old. So I have like a lot of experience, like trying and failing and knowing like what works for me and what doesn't. But I spent over a decade in New York City writing and performing. So I'm just taking that skill set that I learned doing improv and sketch comedy and applying it to this very specific niche. And a lot of comedy, especially sketch comedy, is just math. It's, you're mapping one thing on top of another. So it's like it'd be like a sketch where instead of a doctor giving a patient a cancer diagnosis, it'd be like, how about you have a seat? I have some bad news for you. The upgrades aren't working. Okay. The upgrades you brought to Monza, aren't cutting through the dirty air the way you thought. And we're actually, how bad is it, Doc? Are we losing 1/10 of a second a lap? He's like, oh, it's more like we're losing about a second a lap. No! No, doctor! I told everybody back in the factory that these were going to fix our problems. I'm really, really sorry. I think we're going to have to go back to square one. And it's just like, it's just math. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And so it's been really fun to dive into the world of motorsport, because I feel like there's so many passionate fans. It's like a global sport that people from all over the world are super, super into. And that's I think one of the things that I love about it, because you make content about the NFL. It's mainly in the US. I know they're starting to really push it hard in the UK, and start to have other international games. While soccer or football is a global sport, in the US, it's not as big, even though the MLS is trying. Baseball is still very American. I feel like, motorsport is truly, truly global, and it's cool to get to connect with so many people with doing silly comedy videos.
Yeah, it kind of is really interesting the way you talk about that, because I think comedy and like F1 have actually like a lot in common. Like comedy is kind of this universal language that a lot of people can find common ground in or laugh together, even though they're from all these different places and backgrounds, where F1 is really similar. We can all share that love in a team or a driver.
Yeah, and I think people find it refreshing because it's different today, but for so long, I think F1 was a very stuffy space, and maybe the series probably took itself too seriously and didn't allow for humor to bleed into the space. And they've definitely leaned into it, especially since the popularity of Drive to Survive, and as social media has become such a important aspect of getting people not just introduced into the sport, but keeping them engaged with the sport. And not just the series, but teams have realized the importance of blending humor into their content, as well as, personal aspects of the drivers, personal aspects of different team members, as well as technical stuff as well. But you go back 20 years and Bernie Ecclestone was very anti-social media. Like, I don't know if you know the story about Lewis Hamilton getting a cease and desist from Formula One for posting pictures and video on his Twitter.
You gotta love it.
Bernie was very anti-social media. And like, I'm sure he probably hates the meme culture of F1 now, but I mean, this is what people want.
I mean, he is a walking meme. Like, the man is, like, he literally was made for social media, that man. Like, every quote he makes. I'm actually also reading about, like, the history of Formula One right now. And
are you reading the Formula?
Yes, that's what I'm reading.
It's a great book.
Oh, it's so good. But also, like, hearing all the stuff that he did, and also, like, how he got away with it all. I'm just like, this is insane. It's man wild. Is insane. But also, this would make for a great reality TV show if there ever was one back then.
Agreed.
Just saying. But besides the globalness of F1, and like obviously having this one shared thing over like so many different countries, what else do you think makes the F1 just fan base special from other ones? Because you mentioned like the NFL and soccer and all of that. What do you think makes F1 special?
I think one of the reasons is how consolidated it is. Like, let's say you're a football or soccer fan. There are so many different leagues, and it's not just the domestic leagues. It's the, Champions League. It's the domestic cups. So like, for instance, English football, like you don't just have your domestic league, you also have the FA Cup, you also have the League Cup, you also have Champions League, and then you have national teams playing in Nations League and qualifiers for Euro and qualifiers for World Cup. Like, there's just so many different things to keep track of. F1 is like very consolidated. You have 20 drivers on the grid. You have 10 teams. Next year it'll be 11 and 22. And everybody, and then you have like 18 to 24 races a year, and that's it. So I think just the fact that it's all consolidated, it's very easy to keep track of. And I think what makes F1 fans so special is the fact that it's the shared experience. There's only 18 to 24 races a year. Everybody's tuning in at the same time. Everybody is experiencing the same thing concurrently and experiencing it together.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Even in the US, sometimes we have to get up at the crack of dawn or in the middle of the night. But
yeah, you got to wake up at 3:30 to watch 4 a.m. race start time in Baku. Like it's hard out here sometimes.
Yeah. And I've come to learn now that the sound of F1 cars can put me to sleep. In fact, if it's not going, if it's not an exciting race, I will definitely fall asleep.
Totally.
Yeah, sound ASMR there with F1 cars. But you obviously got into F1 through this kind of social media thing, like you mentioned. You didn't intend on becoming a motorsports content creator, but here you are now, not just working with F1. You're working with big brands. You're working with big championships like IndyCar and Formula E. What has that been like? Have you been like, holy crap, are you still like, how did I get here? I don't understand.
All the time. I'll be at a race and I'll look around and I'll look at the access I have and I'm like, the wrong person got these opportunities because like I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And I think often I still have imposter syndrome. I feel like, there's people that go to school and study journalism or people who have been motorsport fans their entire life. And then like this jackass who made some stupid videos all of a sudden is getting all these opportunities and getting this access. And so I think, especially as I've gotten older and as I've gotten more and more opportunities, I've started to try to take the opportunities more seriously. I used to like sort of, I wouldn't say half-ass it because I was always prepared, but I think I didn't take into consideration like what the real value exchange was between me showing up and getting to work with these people and what I'm providing for them. For instance, when I first started working with Formula E, I made some videos that were dumb, but also didn't have a ton to do with the series. And some got traction, but I think in the long term, I'm like, I don't know how much value they provided to the drivers or to the series that I was supposed to be working with. So Will Buxton had like a very good quote where he's talking about being an analyst of the sport and being like a member of the media in sport. And I know he's not a journalist, he's a presenter, but he was like, our job is to champion these drivers and make them heroes, essentially. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but I think that helped put things into perspective and like what content creators' roles are when they work with brands and they work with series and what we should be doing. And so I think I've made a conscious decision, like I never want to be like the type of creator that's like pranking a driver or embarrassing them or making them look stupid. Like if we are going to have a laugh, it's going to be at my expense, or it's going to be like we're going to be laughing together. No, people aren't going to be laughing at them. And it's just I think I've had to learn quickly, like to appreciate the experience and access I'm getting, because not everybody gets to do this. And
that's so true. I mean, I think since Drive to Survive, obviously the content world has kind of made its way into, and I think it's always interesting when you take a look at who those chosen few, the holy ones in the are kind of given the access. I mean, you've been talked about on your social media how you've been denied access even with all of the experience you have.
I mean, I got denied by the FIA when I applied for those credentials because I applied to the wrong link. that was supposed to be for written journalists and not photographers or videographers or content creators. But I was working with a brand. They sent me a link. They're like, apply for accreditation here. But what I didn't realize is on that form, they invite a lot of journalists to like the same trip that I was on.
Right.
And so I just didn't get clarification, and
That's
why. But the FIA did DM me from their Instagram account being like, your application was hilarious. Thank you so much for the laugh. Also, would you like to attend the World Rallycross Championships in Finland in August, which were just a few days ago? And I was like, I wish I could, but I've already used all my PTO for my day job, so I don't have a free weekend to go to Finland. But thank you for the invite.
No, the real world job keeping you from going to the...
It's insane. Like, I wish I had stumbled into this, situation when I was 25. But I'm 41. I'm married with a kid. I have a 4-year-old, and so I don't really like to travel that much. I don't like to be away from home.
Yeah.
So I wish I had sort of discovered this when I was more willing to just get on a plane at a moment's notice and go do some fun experience.
Yeah. No, I feel you on the PTO. My day job, I'm like, oh, darn it. Well, can't go to that championship this year.
Right.
But feel your pain. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it is important, like, when it comes to making sure, like, what value you're bringing to the audience, because you're totally right. I mean, there's a reason that brands or teams partner up with certain content creators, because it makes sense. You're both plussing each other up in a way, and I think it's something good to think about as a content creator.
For sure.
Yeah. So, Daniella, I know you had a question around what championship. I'll let you ask that one.
Just kind of wanted to know if there was a championship or like brand that you've kind of worked with that's been your favorite to work with, and kind of like, is there a reason why that one stood out to you more so than others, and kind of how do you? I'm guessing that when you kind of get an invitation from a brand or a partner or a championship, you kind of consider like what they're offering and what you can offer them. Is there anything that in particular like you look out for when you're kind of being asked to do these things?
Well, I'm incredibly grateful to Formula E, because that was like the first big job I had as a content creator. I had done like a few one-off videos for brands that I just made at home, but Formula E was the first job where I was hired and I actually got to attend races and talk to drivers and talk to teams. And I think it was also a real learning experience. And I appreciated it a lot because, I talked to creators who have worked both in Formula One and also worked with IndyCar and Formula E, and they talk about the ease in which you can work within the Formula E space. Formula One's very regimented. Everything needs to be scheduled and timed perfectly. I also feel like the comms teams, this is just what I've been told, the comms teams on Formula One teams can be protective of their drivers and team principals and team representatives, and are very wary about the questions that you ask. So often you have to like submit your questions ahead of time. Formula E was like much more laid back. We did have a schedule, but they also were like, they allowed us to have a lot of fun with the drivers, and sort of, even though we had like a set of questions, we could go off script and sort of find the fun together, which I appreciated. And what was so interesting about my experience with Formula E, I'd never attended a race ever in my life. I'd never been to a NASCAR race, an IndyCar race, F1 race, or Formula E. And my first experience getting to attend a race was round 1 of season 10 for Formula E, which was in Mexico City, the Mexico City E-Prix at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. And for my first experience to attend a race ever, to be like in the garage interviewing drivers, to get to like watch practice and qualifying from a team garage, to get to watch the race from the F1 equivalent of the Paddock Club, which is called the Emotion Club. It was just, it was like a pinch me moment. I just never in a million years did I think I would ever get an opportunity like that. So I have a lot of love for Formula E. I was talking with them to work with them season 11. It didn't work out for scheduling reasons because I couldn't attend any of the earlier races. So it just didn't make a lot of sense on their end. But I also love IndyCar. And I think what I love the most about IndyCar is like the experience that I've had being on site and interacting with the fans. Like I went to Long Beach this year. I went to the Indy 500 this year, and I get, every few minutes I would get stopped by a fan being like, "Hey, I love your videos," who would like want to talk to me about IndyCar, want to talk to me about motorsport. And that was incredibly validating, just knowing that there are people out, because you see the metrics on your phone, but you don't really get a real feel for it until people are interacting with you IRL, telling you how much they like your stuff. And that was always a really good feeling. And IndyCar, who I've been working with this year, have been incredible. Mackenzie Williams, who is Senior VP of Marketing at IndyCar, has been such an awesome collaborator and given me all sorts of access, often sometimes very last minute, and trusted me with that access. And it's just been an incredible experience. I think the coolest thing I've done in the last 3 years has been getting to attend the Indy 500 this year with Arrow McLaren, getting to watch from the pits, getting to walk up the grid before the race. It was just, it was an experience unlike any other. And if anybody listening, y'all included, if you ever have the opportunity to go to the Indy 500, please go. It's really, really special.
Yeah, I've heard so many good things about in the Indy 500, just IndyCar in general, which I think is kind of they're doing a good job of being like, hey, we're more friendly and we have more access.
Yeah.
Come here. And I think it's true. They are like more open than F1. Obviously, F1 has this exclusive wrapper around their product, where Indy and just Formula E are more open in that way and more friendly to give that access. And that's awesome that you've gotten the chance to do that. You mentioned like having imposter syndrome when it comes to being in the motorsports content space. I mean, in the like space of like having all this access. Do you ever feel that way, like kind of around like content creation? Like, do you ever think now when you're creating content, like, oh, will this brand not work with me if I make fun of Max Verstappen or in those ways?
I think first and foremost, I try not to make fun of people. Like I try not to punch down. If I do make fun of someone, it's like I'm very much trying to punch up at someone who's very successful. It's someone that like I feel I can take it. I try not to make content that is kicking someone when they're down if they have like a bad race or make a mistake. But I also try not to think of, oh, if I make X video, Y brand won't work with me. Because I feel like if I start thinking like that, I'm putting a filter on myself that takes away like sort of an authenticity that I think have attracted people to my page. So I try not to think about how a video will be seen in the eyes of a brand, because what I've been doing so far has worked and built an audience thus, to this point. And I feel like I just need to sort of stay the course. Of course, I need to like constantly try to find ways to reinvent myself and make content that's like fresh and interesting. But I think once I start editing myself, I feel like a part of like what makes my page stand out will go away.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Like, stick to what is true to you and what's been working. I think that's always like tried and true of like coming up with the idea and being like, well, is this me? Because it's so easy to kind of like fall in the way of, well, this is working, this is becoming popular, I'll just go this way and follow the crowd. But staying true to yourself and asking that question of like, is this my brand or me? It's a really good point. And basically you hit it off, obviously, on the social media world, which has led you now to being now a motorsport podcast host, even deeper into the motorsport world for WTF1. How did you make that transition? And did you feel like, hold on, wait a second, I'm not like, haven't been a crazy F1 fan. Like you said, like you hadn't attended a ton of races up until you got into this. Did you feel like I can do this? Like how did that kind of transpire and go about?
Well, I've worked with WTF and WTF1 for a while because they rep me in the motorsport space. So like I'm on their talent roster, and they have been my managers for all motorsport social media content.
Nice.
And so I know the people who work at the race media and WTF1 very well. I hosted the Race Media Awards in 2024 in London, and just continue to message and work with them every week. And I have a lot of love for the race media and WTF and WTF1. And, you know, they had this rebrand a few years ago because Matt and Tommy left to start P1. And I don't want to go too much into it, but like, you know, Matt and Tommy left, they did this rebrand, and Hayden Gullis and Amber Jones, Sophia Jones, were the hosts. Amber decided she really didn't want to host the podcast anymore. I had guest hosted a few times, and they decided to pair me with Hayden. Hayden and I finished out last season on WTF1. Hayden and I get along really well. I miss Hayden a lot. He now lives in the Netherlands with his girlfriend and does a lot of sim racing content. He also does a lot of Pokemon card content, and that's also like one of his passions. And this year, WTF and WTF1 decided they wanted to try to focus on cultivating an American motorsports audience, which is why Ash ended up coming on and hosting with me. I recommended Ash. I love Ash. Ash is one of my favorite content creators in the motorsport space. I don't understand why she doesn't have, she has a big following, but I don't understand why she doesn't have a bigger following, because like, in my opinion, Ash Vandelay or Ash Kalita is like the total package. Like she's funny. She's so knowledgeable. She's so passionate. She is just, everything she does is so good. And I knew hosting a podcast with her would be easy, and it would allow me to sort of just be myself, and she could carry a lot of the conversation because of how knowledgeable she is on the technical side and knows so many different series. And Ash and I have absolutely loved hosting this podcast together. We don't know how long we're going to do it. We're definitely going to finish out this season, but it's just a big time commitment, and both of us have full-time jobs. Both of us are making content on our own pages. So we don't know if we will do it past this season, but we have really enjoyed doing it, at least for this year.
Yeah, we feel you on that. Yeah. Especially with our 6-hour time difference. There's like one pocket of time every day that'll work. And with we all have full-time jobs, and like some weeks it doesn't work. So yeah, I mean, and you're right, she's amazing. I love her content, her knowledge on not just like one championship, but almost all, is absolutely insane. Love her so much, and I love that you two paired together. I think you two just, you're right, you like vibe and bounce off each other really well. Which is really great, and we love two American hosts. Why not?
Well, I mean, a lot of people don't.
Don't worry, being American and a female is always super fun in this space. So.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
but a lot. There's a lot of like anti-American sentiment. A lot of people are like, "Why are Americans talking about F1?" Which I, you know, for a long time I didn't understand until I started seeing British people talk about the NFL. And my instinctual reaction was, who the fuck are these people trying to talk about American football? Get the fuck out of here. And then I realized what I was doing was the same exact thing that British people do when I talk about F1 or motorsport in general. And I realized I was wrong. And I needed to be like, if I really love the NFL and if I really love American football, I want everybody to be talking about it, and I want to encourage everybody to be a fan and not gatekeep it, which is what a lot of old school F1 fans do when I make videos.
Yeah.
So that's mea culpa.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned too, like comedy wasn't really a thing in the content creation space, but I think it was so needed, obviously was, because it hit with so many people. You've gained this following on it. But I think, you know, F1 can be so like uptight, like you said, and guarded by the gatekeepers of F1. So when you bring something new, it obviously is either going to really resonate with some people or either rub somebody the wrong way, which is always a fun time. Yeah, my first hurdle is always, wait, you know, cars? I'm like, yes, cars. Yes, I know. Yeah, cars. And poor Daniella, like Daniella is like the queen of everything F1 Academy and W series. She's literally a walking encyclopedia. I know she said people at work make fun of her for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my nickname at work, despite being a motorsport company, is Motorsport Girl because I watch so many championships. But it gets to the point where like that kind of becomes a little bit of like a dig and a little bit of like people kind of taking a joke out of me. And like even like on some of our content that we've posted online, like we'll have people who don't know that I actually work in the industry because we mention it in the podcast, but like a lot of people, if they're only seeing clips on socials and they won't know my background. And so we'll get a lot of comments telling us like, go back into the kitchen. You don't know what you're talking about. And we've had before where someone's been like, I'm a race engineer and I know so much more than you and you know nothing because you're just a Drive to Survive fan. And I'm sat there like, okay, can you explain to me about Formula E and how you'd work on a Formula E car? No. So maybe this space isn't for you. So yeah, like that's just the nature of creating content online and putting yourself out there is you are going to get these comments. And I personally love them. I think it's great. I'm like, yes, you're giving us more views. Thank you so much. Like it doesn't negatively affect me in any way. Like even people in my like personal life, if they make any comments, like when I was at uni, none of them thought that I would ever be able to make this into a career. Like they all told me that I'd wasted so much money doing an acting degree if I wasn't going to use it and that I was going to really regret all of my life decisions. And then I'm the only one now that properly like solidly works in the TV and film industry.
That's wild.
And yeah, so like from the get-go of my career, I've had people doubt me. I've had my university lecturer who told me that I should not use a headshot of me wearing a pink jumper as like kind of my profile because otherwise I won't get hired in motorsport because I'm too feminine. And that I kind of need to alter who I am because I'm too feminine to work in this space. So I used that headshot on my CV for when I started working on Formula E and I got the job. And so since then, I've tried to wear as much pink as I possibly can on any race day.
I love it.
She does. It's great. Yeah, it's like a crazy world. And I think like F1 too, it's happened so quickly, the evolution, like you mentioned, Drive to Survive and kind of like creating content around that and it growing bigger and bigger. Do you think you will continue working in this motorsport space kind of moving forward? What do you see for yourself in the coming future?
I think as long as I continue to enjoy it and you know, it brings me happiness, I will keep doing it. You know, once it stops being fun and feels like a job, I think is probably when I'll walk away. Like it is very much a side hustle for me right now. I don't know if I will ever work in motorsport full time because, as you all probably know, motorsport does not pay very well. And, you know, people who work in the space do it because they truly love it. It's like working in TV and film. Like a lot of positions in TV and film don't pay well. And I really like the job that I currently have. I work as a copywriter and a content creator for a bank in the United States for SoFi. You know, we have the naming rights to SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, where the Los Angeles Rams and the Los Angeles Chargers play. We're the official bank of the NBA. We're the presenting sponsor of TGL, which is the indoor golf league that happens from like January to March. And so I get to, you know, work in sports marketing doing that as well as making content about personal finance and products we do. And it, you know, it pays pretty well. And like, I just, especially as someone who's married with a kid, I don't know if I could ever give that job up. And as much as I would love to, work on a broadcast, I don't know what the value I would add, because I don't have quote unquote wheel knowledge the way a lot of other content creators do. And a lot of people who are aspiring presenters or aspiring analysts. I don't have that. So I don't know what kind of value I would add or bring to the table. There are so many current and former drivers who are very personable, who are good at doing that. So I don't think working in the broadcast space is a right fit for me either.
I actually kind of disagree with kind of what you're saying in terms of what you could bring to the broadcast.
Yeah.
I think that what is working really well on some other broadcasts, I'm going to use Channel 4, which we have in the UK, their coverage of Formula One. They do a highlights package, also made by Whisper, who I work for. And they've used a comedian presenter, Steve Jones, to kind of front it. And what works really well is that he brings in the humor. His knowledge might not be as strong as some of the pundits, because a lot of them are ex-racing drivers, but he brings in that humor that then makes it relatable to the audience. And I think the fact that you have a foundation already of motorsport knowledge is extremely beneficial, because I need to be careful on what I say, but we had a presenter on Formula E a few years ago who didn't know the sport. And that was what made it challenging. It's they have presented on other things. They kind of knew about how to, what sports presenting is, but they didn't know the sport at all. They couldn't name a single driver before they started. And that then made it challenging for us. But as soon as you have someone who just knows the bare minimum, they can name all 22 drivers on a grid, and they can at least understand the rules, but then they bring in this added element of humor like yourself, that then became really desirable.
I will say, though, I got to give a shout out to Alexa Randall, who is a digital presenter for Formula E. She is so knowledgeable and so good, both with her work in Formula E and her work in WEC. She is just this walking encyclopedia who is also a very funny nerd at the same time. And she's the total package. I will never be able to be as good as Alexa Randall. I just have to say that.
I'm just going to put it out there into the universe. Cadillac, if you need someone to launch your livery, James is available. He's an American F1 comedian and fan. So,
Daniella, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I mean, you said you're a big fan of the W Series and F1 Academy. How do you currently feel about the state of F1 Academy?
I have kind of a really complicated relationship with F1 Academy. When it first launched, I thought, oh God, is this just going to be another W Series where this is not even going to last? Yeah. The fact that they didn't have any coverage, you couldn't go to a single race in the first season. The second season, then I kind of thought, okay, we're getting more traction, we're getting involved with Formula One, we're heading in the right direction. I think the problem with this season is that they lost potentially the biggest name that they had connected to it, which was Abby Pulling. Mm-hmm. We have big names, but I think that Abby last season was the one that brought the traction in the same way that Jamie Chadwick did at W Series. Everyone knew her name, so then that's when people tuned into W Series. And this year we haven't kind of got that, and I think that it is lacking that. We also, and I'm kind of the lead host for this, have an F1 Academy podcast where we try and kind of deep dive into each race and talk about the biggest stories. But the fact that the calendar is quite inconsistent makes it really hard to create constant episodes and content creation on it, because you can go weeks and weeks without anything. Right. I think what they're trying to do is needed, and we need to have a space for women to progress and be given these opportunities, because from the grassroots those opportunities aren't there in the same way that they are for men. But there's still a lot that I think F1 Academy can work on, and I think they need to start. I think that they're starting to do this, where they're kind of looking at those grassroots and seeing how can they introduce girls from a young age. And now they're creating these role models so that girls can then have people to look up to and say, okay, I can do this too. But there's almost like an in-between gap of now we've got people starting and we've got people at this point, but we need to kind of develop the in-between stage. And then also help progress them further on. Like Abby was quite lucky with her seat in GB3. She just got a podium this weekend, her first podium in the championship. But if we look at the year before, like Marta Garcia, she then went on to FRECA, but then hasn't progressed since and hasn't been able to really... She said that she had to take a step back from racing because she didn't have a seat anywhere. And I think like they make it seem like this is a really big deal of like, you're going to win the championship and it's going to be amazing. But then I feel like the support afterwards isn't quite there. So like I have a kind of love-hate relationship with it.
I mean, have they ever had conversations about like guaranteeing like a fully funded like F3 seat if you win the F1 Academy championship?
That was originally what it was advertised as, is that if you won F1 Academy, you'd go to Formula 3. And when they launched it, it was all over their socials about that is exactly what would happen. Yeah. And then as soon as Marta Garcia won, they kind of took that away because then she went into FRECA because no one in Formula 3 wanted her because sponsors don't see women as being as good as men. So then they therefore don't want to sponsor them. And it just constantly comes back to funding. And that's the hardest part. In all of my research into female drivers, that has kind of been the hardest part, is that the lack of funding is causing them to have to drop out.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but F1 Academy uses like F4 equivalent machinery, correct?
Yes.
Do you ever see a future where they use F3 or F2 equivalent machinery to maybe make the series more appealing to like hardcore motorsport fans?
I think no, because mostly because that would create even more backlash. All the time, whenever like for example, Abby Pulling's just moved up to GB3, which uses F3 spec cars. There's still a lot of hate of like, she wouldn't be fast. She's not fast enough to drive an F3 car. She's not driving enough to drive an F2 car. Like there's always that criticism of like, they're not good enough for that car. She has now proven everyone wrong. She's just got a podium this weekend, but she had a really tough start to GB3 season. The first rounds she did really well, and then she had a crash and her car then was not up to scratch, and it took them a while to figure out what the problem was. So she was towards the back of the grid and everyone was going, see, she couldn't live up to this. Just because she won F1 Academy doesn't mean that she's actually a good driver. And like all of these comments then start being created. But so right now I think no, just because it does feed like all the time people are saying, oh, how great would it be if we could get someone from F1 Academy into F2, and then everyone's like, no, they wouldn't be fast enough, they'd be at the back of the grid, they're not good enough. So I think right now they're going to stick with F4 and kind of make that progression into F3. You then go from F1 Academy into an F3 spec car, whether that is GB3, FRECA, F3, whatever. Obviously F3 is going to have a lot more funding and money invested into it than GB3 does. I think that it's just the fact that how they advertise it to begin with isn't the route that these drivers are then taking.
Yeah, that's hard. I will say Catherine Leggs had a very similar experience in NASCAR this year where, you know, it's a big adjustment, adjusting not just to NASCAR, but to like going straight into like doing Cup Series races. And it's just very different machinery to what she's used to. And she's had a ton of success in single seaters, ton of success driving in IMSA. Both in prototypes and also in like GT cars. But, you know, some of the beginning, some of the sort of the issues that she's had starting out, the learning curve, other drivers have it, but because she's a woman, there's this giant spotlight and everyone's like, oh, she can't do it because she's a woman, not, oh, she can't do it because she's adjusting to a totally new series and a totally new style of car. And now all of a sudden she got a top 20 finish at the Chicago Street Race. She got a top 20 finish at Indianapolis at the Brickyard 400 after starting like all the way from the back. And even drivers are like, maybe I was too harsh on her. I was wrong. And, it's just like it happens in every series.
We've talked about Danielle and I before as well, like the grace period that's allotted to women. Like if, for let's say Logan Sargent was a woman, there have been no way that she would have been given that amount of time or chance.
Totally.
And it's almost like you have to perform right off the bat, or then those comments of, oh, women can't drive come in.
Yeah.
100%.
And it was the same case for Jamie Chadwick when she moved into Indy Next. The first season, she really struggled. Then, like, the start of the second season that she was in, she struggled. And then she went and won a race.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until she won a race that people were like, oh, no, okay, she actually is good. And it's like, well, she has been good this entire time. Like, she won W Series 3 times. She came in and then proved how good she was because of her defending. People have kind of this surface level view on, if you're not winning, then you're not good. Actually, I think the great thing about bringing drivers from championships where they've won to then when they're not winning, you get to see their different skill set. Jamie never got to defend in W Series because she was constantly winning. Well, then she came into Indy Next, and then that was the skill then she got to really highlight that she was good at. And I feel like that's why it's important to have kind of these next steps where you're challenged in a different way, because then you can show how good of a driver you are as an all-rounder, not just at kind of getting pole and then just steaming off ahead.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. No, we love to talk women in sports, obviously. I mean, that's a big mission of our show because all three of us are women. But yeah, and like she said, we're trying to produce an F1 Academy, but with the gaps in between and the lack of coverage, frankly, it is difficult to create more than 30 to 25 minutes of a podcast every couple of weeks. Yeah, I think women in motorsports is there's so much room to grow there. And I think the fact that we see more women in the content creation space, we see brands getting involved, not just through F1 Academy, but you start to see these other brands like Aston Martin just a couple weeks ago partnered up with a nail brand. Obvious, like nail stickers and stuff like that. Like, so
was it Elmas?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Really like seeing that females, not just like in motorsport, but also as a fan wise, are incredibly valuable asset to have, and are very, their main people a lot of the time. So it is encouraging to see, and I'm happy that you brought it up as well, because, we got to keep talking about it, got to keep supporting it. I think as somebody who creates content too around it, makes me sad that I haven't seen more, women are like, women in motorsports, but then I'm like, where's the content, ladies, around these drivers? Like, no one's making any content about it. So yeah, it is something we hope progresses in the future, and hopefully we can have a bigger show about it.
I think it's a catch-22 because a lot of people say, oh, I'm not going to cover motorsport with like female drivers. I'm not going to cover women in motorsport because it doesn't get engagement. But it's never going to be a part of the conversation if people like aren't making an effort to talk about it at the same time. So you need to put the work in. And once, you make an effort to put women in the forefront and make them part of the conversation in motorsport, not just as like a token, like woman in a series. It's not until that point where it really just no longer becomes an issue. And we're just, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think for us, one thing that feels quite ironic is like we hear these conversations of like, we're not going to support women in this sport, we're not going to support female drivers or female engineers or anything like that. But the content that we have made about women is the content for us that has done the best. Like we did a whole kind of episode on Haas's first ever F1 female engineer, Laura Muller.
Oh, Laura Muller,
and that is, that's our episode that has done the best the entire season. Not only is in like the episode itself, but the content around it. So it's, to me, like, I find it so funny that people are like, oh, we're not going to support you because you support women, and we're not going to support your content about women, when actually that's our content that is doing the absolute best. So it's, as you said, like this catch-22 kind of thing that's going on here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Really interesting. And we hope to see, like you said, like with around F1 Academy, kind of that jump to F3 happen hopefully soon. Because
I had a very funny F1 Academy moment. I went to the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal with Lenovo, and I'm sitting in the paddock club, and I got to watch the F1 Academy races, which were awesome. And Chloe Chambers won one of the races, and they're playing the Star Spangled Banner as she's on the podium. And just instinctually, I was like, yeah, let's go. These colors don't run. And like the Lenovo people turn and they're like, shut up. What are you doing? You're embarrassing yourself. Because like, first of all, I forgot that I was not in the United States. I was in Canada. And also like, I forgot that type of nationalism can be misunderstood as something else these days.
Yeah.
So people were like, shut up, be cool.
Like, you're embarrassing Lenovo. Like, don't,
exactly.
These colors don't run. You were also in the most French. You're basically in France, actually. I know.
Yeah.
You, like,
Exactly.
you're like, oh, this American. Oh. Like,
I'm also in the Paddock Club, which is like fancy. And I'm like, let's go.
Yeah. Meanwhile, if you were in the Paddock Club in Austin, it probably just would have been all that. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Freedom, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry, Daniela. Our Americanness is really, it's coming out. It's okay. I label myself as the token American on this podcast, so it's all good.
Right on.
But yeah, we love it. Really quick before we wrap up this episode, I'm going to do quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
We've got 1, 2, 3, we've got 5 questions for you. Really quick yes or no, or just your one-word answer or name answers in some of these cases.
Okay.
So if you're ready for it,
Let's do
run into it. Okay.
Okay.
If you can make content with anyone on or off the F1 grid, who would it be?
George Russell.
Okay, I feel like I know this is quick fire, but why?
I'm not even like a George Russell fan. I just feel like he would make funny content because he like everything he does turns into a meme.
Right. Yeah. Or a Ralph Lauren ad.
He's just like he's goofy as hell, and he tries so hard not to be, but he's just a fucking goofy dork. You know?
He really does try to hide it behind his British properness, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. He thinks he's more of like a suave model type, but he's actually more of like a Stephen Merchant character from the British Office.
Yeah. Seriously. Yes. Actually, now you just made the comparison. I 100% see it now. I love it. Okay. If you had to choose one, IndyCar, Formula E, or F1?
I love F1. I love Formula E, but I'm going to have to go with IndyCar.
Got it.
IndyCar's
colors don't run.
IndyCar's for the people.
It's for the people.
It's
That's
also
very
just,
true.
It's just also way more accessible, and F1 can be very stuck up at times. And Formula E is a great series, but I do think IndyCar is more accessible to fans, especially with the paywall situation that was going on, which we could talk about later, Daniela.
Okay, so who on the current grid do you think would crush it as an improv comedian?
On the F1 grid?
Yeah.
Yuki Tsunoda. Because the best improvisers just instinctually and truthfully like say whatever their first reaction is. They're not trying to be funny.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he does in interviews.
That's true.
Like his answers often are very funny, but they're not meant to be funny. He's just being honest. Like when they all ask the drivers, like, what's your dream? And everyone's like, to be an F1 world champion, the F1 world champion. And he goes, to open a restaurant.
That's true. He's so obsessed with like food, which I love because he's literally like the tiniest little human on the face of the planet. He doesn't really look like he'd stuff his face, but apparently.
Yeah, where does it go?
I don't know. I really don't know. We need all of his secrets for sure. All right, Max radio rants or Toto pitbull meltdowns?
Max radio rants.
Max, got it. And last one, Formula E related. Pit boost or attack mode?
Pit boost, because I hate attack mode.
You hate attack mode?
I feel like nobody likes attack mode. Nobody wants to go off the racing line to activate something. Like they all do attack mode because they have to. If they had the option, they would not take it.
That's true.
That is true, but I really don't like pit boost.
I don't like pit boost either. I don't like fan boost. They got to figure something else out. I don't know what that is.
They're really trying. It has like this video game-esque. I've always felt like those moves have been like That's very video game-esque. Pit boost or attack mode feels like something out of Forza.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I don't think it's any of those elements. Like I think maybe tire, like if they find a way to add battery life and give us longer races, I think like incorporating a tire strategy would be very interesting in Formula E. But correct me if I'm wrong, Daniela, but I'm pretty sure like the 45-minute give or take races are due to the limitations on the battery life, correct?
Yeah. They wanted to kind of progress from having to jump out of a car and change cars. And which is why kind of pit boost was introduced as well, because they get 10% more energy. And then that means they could go longer, but it doesn't, I feel like if they were going to do it, they need to do either pit boost or attack mode and not both on one race. It just, in my opinion, doesn't work. But that's up to Formula E to decide.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, man, I miss the days of when they used to switch cars. That, to me, was exciting. I was like, is it going to make it? It had that, like, Le Mans-esque kind of vibe to it, which I loved. But, yeah. Well, James, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for sharing all of your just fun insight and knowledge. And we love to see all the content that you're bringing out.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. And if people want to follow you, where can they find you?
They can follow me on Instagram at @thisjamescoker, on TikTok at @thisjamescoker, or they can follow me on YouTube at my channel Temple of Room.
Temple of Room. Love it. Great name. See, that's how I should have known you were a copywriter. That just doesn't come from anywhere. Well, thanks so much for coming. And everyone, we will catch you on the next episode, and we'll see you in the fast lane. Bye-bye.
Hello, fly chick coming through. Nice to meet you, glad you came too.